And now everybody shows up. Oh, cool. Maybe they're actually already waiting there. So, hello, everybody. It's a Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time here in the snowy and wet Atlanta in Metro. And I'm joined here today by the full crew. So, Michelle Chan Sangthong, and I got it right this time. Dan Thies, I usually get that one right. And Corey, what's his name? Burke, that's it.
So we don't actually say the thieves like you do, so I kind of just been ignoring you for, I don't know,
okay.
years now. So.
Cool, that's fine. All right, whatever. And so this particular episode of the Hangouts with the Braintrust, Hanging with the Braintrust, Michelle has a prepared presentation. Oh, no, Dan. Who's actually presenting? I've lost track. Is it Dan or Michelle?
Dan.
Yeah, it's Michelle. Yeah, Michelle's ready to go right now. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So we're going to, if it's me, we're changing topics. So.
Okay. So actually, Dan is presenting, and whatever the email said that went out, that's what he's presenting about. But Dan, do you want to start the show with a little bit of news or not?
Well, there's a little bit of news. Not a whole lot of news that I've had a chance to go over in detail to have any meaningful commentary on it. But the big news is AdWords news.
Okay, so what is that big news?
Well, you know, Leslie, obviously, as a responsible grown-up marketer, you read the AdWords blog every day, and well, most of the time they bore you to tears with crazy crap that's like, why are you telling me this? This isn't even a good case study. But sometimes they announce something really cool, like being able to run phone call only ads.
Oh, now that is kind of cool.
You can run an ad that doesn't have a website and a landing page.
Well, that's really doing weird
just
things.
has a phone number.
That's
For
right.
That people
mobile,
can call.
Is that for desktop?
Well,
'Cause
it'll
mo-
never make it onto desktop. It ain't never going to show up on desktop because it's not going to win that auction because the expected click-through rate is going to be about none. So it's going to
Mobile's
be.
had that for some time. We were doing that like a year and a half ago.
Oh, Corey, this is an ad that only has a phone number as a call to action. That's all you can do. So that's all available to the whole world now. So if you were in the beta, cool. Now it's out for everybody. So there's something exciting.
I wasn't aware it was. Yeah, you could do only mobile. I thought it was still. I mean, the ads, you could do a click to call in it, but there was still like.
You can do a click to call on desktop, but it's.
Why?
The fact is, right, Google, even before your ad gets any clicks, predicts what your click-through rate's going to be, right? So when there's no phone number action happening from desktops, because I never click and make phone calls, that doesn't mean that you can't use phone extensions and you can't generate calls off those. But
we were running them just phone call only on mobile back when I was doing all the law stuff.
I bet that was a lot better than running ads that took people to a website and all that kind of stuff, huh?
It was until it was way better conversion, more phone calls. The only downfall is when lawyers discovered you could do it, they jacked up the price.
Yes, when people start bidding for something, that usually means that the prices in the auction are going to go up, and when there are no other bidders, those auctions tend to have fairly low prices in them.
Yeah, something about the invisible hand, as I recall. An old book about that. Okay.
Yes, and I mean, on eBay, right, you can set a reserve price. So if there are no bidders for your stuff enough to drive the price up, you don't have to sell it. Google's reserve price on AdWords is ridiculously low. So, yeah. And I noticed Shira's mentioned that she's been getting insanely good ROI on that stuff as well. Yep. And it's not for every business, right? I mean, there are some things where you want people to be able to go and look and download your white paper and whatever else, but there are a lot of businesses where it's clearly so much superior as a call to action that even having fewer actions take place, the ROI can just be too good to pass up. So,
and we may be seeing a change at some point about phone call not working from desktop because Apple thinks that that's already a sensible thing to do. Whenever my phone rings,
have my phone ring on my freaking computer. Like what?
Yeah, and then I answer the phone and my iPad keeps on ringing. It didn't get the memo apparently.
I know. You pick up the phone and the camera on your computer turns on, and now we're doing FaceTime. I don't want to do FaceTime with you, man. I've seen you enough.
I know that could just like totally backfire if you didn't have that stuff. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Some electrical tape on it.
Especially when you've got the Internet of Things, and your bathroom mirror has a camera on it to help you with your eye makeup.
Yeah. Okay, so that is interesting news about AdWords, and so we should have next week we'll do a little bit better job of getting the updates out before.
Some of my local folks could have used that. I mean, I can think of a perfect time, when it's 5:55 on a Thursday afternoon, and your mother-in-law calls you and says, "Hey, what's this stuff coming up out of my drains, and can you help?" So it would have been. I actually had to dig to find plumbers. So.
Yeah, and how about a plumber that actually will be able to answer the phone when their ad is displayed? That's been something I've had trouble finding from time to time. It's like, people, if you're going to pay for it, be there for it.
I had to go through three. I had to go through three to find somebody that could call me back and come back within a couple of hours of the time. So. Yeah,
and pretty much anybody could have that conversation with you, but that's why there's still room in local markets for middle persons.
Hey, so Richard already asked a question. Dan, are phone extensions available in Australia?
Probably.
Okay, not very definitive. Okay.
I know you can get phone call extensions. I what I don't know is if you can get Google to give you a tracking number, or if you got to go roll your own tracking number through a third-party service. I don't know if they have those rolled out there, but yeah, you can put phone numbers in ads in the Australias.
Yeah, so you might actually be looking at a third-party service or something that you bring in.
Yeah, I don't know whether Google's tracking numbers are available to you there. I'm not sure that I want to use them here, so that might be hoping for something that you might not actually need.
Okay, well, that's cool. Yeah. So why don't we jump into the presentation, Dan? And
let's do that.
Questions afterwards.
Yeah, later we can talk about the reasons why Google's tracking numbers might suck.
Yeah, so I'm going to present
in a week it'll be pointing to someone else. So I got to do that screen sharing trick.
As soon as I get you presented to everyone.
I'm going to do the screen sharing trick before. These things do not have to happen simultaneously.
Okay, well, that's fine. I may have actually already done it. No, I'm not.
So,
I'm not sure.
Desktop number 2. See, I'm already switched to the other desktop, and it says I'm screen sharing.
Boom.
It's kind of weird how it says you were screen sharing stop. Like, is that like an editorial comment, or?
It is.
And so now, if we can just get you presented to everybody. It seems like it always takes like 3 tries to click that button to get it to actually work.
But you can train us how to do it 3 times, right?
Yeah, I know, right? Okay, it seems now it's working. Okay, great.
Because Mr. Roadie's going on a roadie in a couple of weeks.
Something like that.
So one of us is going to have to figure out how to push the buttons.
Indeed, that's right. So.
Okay, so I believe that when I was...
You're not full screen yet, Dan.
Thank you. Good. I'm glad. So I believe that when I was asked to give this thing a name, I came up with something blah blah about setting up a Facebook referral engine.
Okay.
Because I wanted to give it a cool name besides what the nice people in grown-up marketing world cost us, and I'll get back to what they call it and why we don't really like that name so much. And also why I think it's sort of a limiting view of what you're actually doing. So let's talk about Facebook referral engines. But before we do, let's just consider, when did marketing get so complicated? I can remember back in the day when I had a website. It was static. I got emails from people. I sent them email. And that was pretty simple, wasn't it? Did you did that stuff, Leslie?
Yeah,
some of that internet marketing stuff, right?
You didn't even have to have like canned spam hadn't happened. You could actually spam, and yeah.
Yes, you can spam. So all you can eat spam.
Yeah.
But there weren't that many things that you had to do. There weren't that many things that you had to know. There weren't that many things you had to understand. Heck, most people were able to measure the number of hits on their website and think it meant something and still not go out of business. That's how easy it was back then.
And some of those people, sadly, really haven't updated their game. I know Corey is thinking that right now.
Yeah, well, I used to offer a free service to teach people how to double the number of hits on their website.
Well, I can do that. Just to install
on the phone
analytics
and
twice.
explain to them that we should be selling them click tracks, but just put twice as many pictures on the page, Bob. Yeah. But it really has gotten more complicated. And I know, and it's not just for business owners, but even some of the consultants out there are. It's almost like we need to come up with a new framework, and how are we going to talk about all of this stuff together. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of all of these different individual things that people do have kind of gotten their own names, and they've been part of their own communities, and so they've come up with their own terminology and stuff like that for a lot of things. But guess what? Now it's all being connected together, and so we do need to kind of organize it in a way. And so Michelle and I have been kind of working on just sort of a basic, simple, sort of a simple step-by-step of if I were going to walk in as say your new marketing director, or as your new consultant, or whatever the case might be, right? What would be the stages of every time I try and do any kind of an assessment, right, Leslie? That takes resources, right? How many people do we have right now that are working for us that are almost every hour of their day is simply assessing the state of people's websites and analytics and stuff like that, right? So where would we put that first so that we can actually get some campaigns up and running quickly? And the sort of the first three phases that we came up with is looking at, first one is the analytics and measurement. We've talked about this multiple times, obviously, during our hangouts. I think I did one 3 or 4 weeks ago on why we measure and how much that can mean. And you talked over the last couple of weeks about how to do that math. And some of that was a little bit boring to our consultants that have had to do that math with people a million times. And so hopefully this one will be a little bit more interesting to them as well. But it's really something that whether you're the owner of the business, you're the consultant, you're the marketing person. It's helpful, I think, to see how much now you really have to do before you actually get to firing live bullets in campaigns and building out funnels. There's a lot of stuff that has to get set up, and one of these days we'll probably have better software solutions for hosting our websites where this stuff is easy. We already see shopping cart solutions that are out there where the Universal Analytics and Tag Manager, it's just a matter of check the box that says you want it. We found out over the last few months of working with a lot of retailers, there are a number of cards, not just one or two, that actually have native support in them now for shopping feeds, for Google Merchant Center, and for other search shopping search engines and things like that. That's fantastic. At some point, the technology will catch up, but if what we're seeing now is any indication, they're currently 4 years behind and not really catching up very fast. But some of the stuff like Google Tag Manager and Universal Analytics allow them to kind of make one big leap forward to what the future is going to look like for quite a while. Because Leslie, you use Tag Manager, Michelle uses Tag Manager, Corey uses, right? It's something that you can have the tech people or the client or whoever set up once, and then you can go make changes to what's being painted on the pages, and you don't have to actually have somebody go in and write another line of PHP code in a WordPress template or whatever else the case might be. But we do need to have the measurement in place, know what our goals are, and that we're actually measuring them. We've had a number of folks that we've worked with that simply failed because they were not able to measure the actual outcome that they wanted. And so we see people do it where they think all leads are of equal value, but they're not, and they never figure out that that's important until they decide to ramp up and start spending more money on leads, and then they don't pan out the way I expect them to. It's easy to say, for example, if you're working on AdWords, that this one keyword works, and so now I should accept Google's suggestion to match every possible keyword that anybody might be tricked into clicking on my ad for. But the fact is, if you're doing well on one keyword, that doesn't mean you're going to convert well on the other keyword, and it doesn't mean that the traffic from those keywords is ever going to be worth as much as from one to the other. But before we can do anything beyond sort of the old school stuff, right, we have to set up some plumbing. There's, as you get across all the different platforms, there's, email, right, there's all kinds of different ads management. There's managing ads within your site. Most folks within the sound of my voice, not just on their site, but if they've got clients on their client sites too, there should be some kind of ad rotation or something like that, at least in place in the blog, the content sections, where you can rotate different offers through and not show everybody the same thing on every page every time they go there. Because when we go from page to page, we'll look at the stuff that changed. And so if you change one element on the page to something that's relevant to their interest, so if you talk about free shipping on one click, and the next click you talk about fast shipping, you can get both messages into their head as they surf through the site and reinforce them. But I don't want to digress into that. And then the last thing is, once you've got all that stuff set up, that's when you start to actually test and start to build out and scale up campaigns and funnels. And you want to start with one funnel that works and then build more than one funnel that works. But we've beaten that to death multiple times recently, and so I'm not going to beat that to death anymore, but in fact show you something that is, we're really going to focus more on the channel and plumbing side and what steps you're going to take, but we'll also touch on some of the campaigns and funnels that you can run within that.
Yeah, Dan, before you move on to that, I mean, it might be worth just kind of putting an exclamation point following your message if people didn't actually get what you said. It used to be so easy, right? The so-called blind dog could find a bone. Well, that's not true anymore. You can't be a blind dog and actually make it online. And so that's the reason. I mean, back in the day, I mean, heck, who needed analytics, right? I mean, almost anything you did was going to work. And so,
Leslie, right? We both knew somebody that was making 6 figures a year on ad revenue with a site that was built in Notepad.
Yeah, that's true. And certainly no tracking.
Well, I think you were the one that got analytics installed on there.
Could be.
Didn't do it yourself, but yelled about it enough. But yeah, I mean, it used to be so easy, and now you've got to get a handle on it. And so what we're trying to do is find a way that we can do this in bite-sized pieces, right? Where people can, if you can get this one thing done and you can get it done in a week and spend an hour or two, maybe 12, 15 weeks down the road, you've actually got the significant plumbing in place, and you've actually got campaigns running, and so you can be doing modern marketing. But the recognition, the more we've done kind of these consultations with people in varying stages, and some of them become service clients, and some of them we just say, I can't even tell, right? I can't tell from your analytics if you're making any money because I can't even see if you're selling anything. You got to fix that first, and some of them fix it and come back, and some of them don't. And honestly, if you don't fix that, you're gonna stop coming back at some point, right? The other
if you don't know,
other animals are gonna grab your lunch.
Yeah, if you don't know you're making money or not, it's likely you're not. And it's like the way to operate a business by just looking at your bank account. No, you better.
Well, that's not even a way to operate a very simple life, right?
No, it's not.
One source of income and one bill because you live in a hotel. That's my goal. Just move into hotels because that'll get rid of all these utility bills and everything. Just like pay the hotel. But let's move on from that because that was not important for everybody to know. Unless you're in the hotel business and you've got a great monthly rate you want to offer me. Okay. So let's talk about what we're going. Okay, yeah. During the slideshow, thanks for the instructions. Okay, next. Okay. So anybody remember discussion forums? Because once upon a time, if you wanted to dominate an industry and you could get a discussion forum up and running and actually build an audience, you could have a really, really big position in that industry. If you look at the SEO industry, the people that you would see speaking at marketing conferences about SEO were the people that owned the forums. The people that were frequent participants in the forums that were liked by the people that owned the forums, but also, when somebody says, who do you know that knows about X? There's a pretty good chance that it's somebody that they met in a forum. Gosh, they're there used to be this thing called the Warrior Forum that a few of you may have accidentally stumbled into. And most of you have probably stumbled well out of by now, but even something just as transparently what that is as what that is had a pretty significant impact on internet marketing and who you listen to today, by the way.
Well, and who was Brett Tepke's forum? That was
Webmaster World.
Yeah, Webmaster World. Yeah, that was very, very good forum. I mean, I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, and by the way, folks, I mean, go pay whatever he's charging for the membership to get in the private forums if you hang out there all the time. But just realize that the private forums are exactly as lame as the public forums. It's just fewer, just completely crazy people because they can kick them out now. Because they'll go create another account if you kick them out of your forum, but they won't go pay for another account if you kick them out of your private forum. And that's the important thing to remember. But the thing with discussion forums is it was where the conversation was taking place, where recommendations happened, where people learned what to recommend from the conversations with other people. Even way back in the day when discussion forums were the thing, you had people doing, astroturfing, fake comments, fake reviews, and all the other same stuff. Or sometimes it was an organized activity. Sometimes it was a very disorganized activity. Sometimes you had trolls. All the same stuff that we deal with now in social media has just found its way from where the conversations were taking place before, because it's really about who is in the conversation, who is notable, who is controlling the conversation, and of course, you'd love to be the host of the conversation, right? And so, things like having a Facebook page where people can talk to you, it's kind of a no-brainer activity, right? You can talk to them, they can talk to you. It's a great place for conversations, and the cool thing about Facebook is, they're already on Facebook. They don't have to, fill out a form and decide, gosh, now I got to think about what kind of email notifications do I want to join your forum, right? They get their default settings, and it's one click. All they got to do is hit like if it's a Facebook page, or join if it's a group. There's a place for both. We're not going to dive into why we think there's a place for both and all that stuff today. But it's all about who do you want to have in that conversation, and what's the nature of the conversation that you want to have. But either way, you'd love to be the host of the conversation. The trick with Facebook, of course, is everybody else can talk to them on Facebook too, but everybody else could talk to them on the internet already. It's just that that Facebook draws it all closer together, and by the way, makes it easier and more convenient for you to tap into conversations that are going on that you had nothing to do with initiating to help with your marketing. So, hey, yeah, it's great, right? Leslie, you've run a forum before, right? At least sort of.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time. But, yeah,
Chief technology officer of a forum once upon a day, and it was lots of fun, wasn't it, to have a forum, because those things break every freaking day. In fact, we've been trying to get a forum to stay operational and not ridiculously dog slow for us for forever, right?
Pretty much.
We've used multiple like host your own forum scripts. We've used multiple third parties. Where the conversation just seems to work all the time? Facebook, where they've dedicated the requisite 250,000 developers to the project of keeping a forum up and running. Because Facebook is really just like a really big, huge, cool social forum that can have lots of little special interest groups and stuff. It's nothing new. It's nothing that wasn't basically there with MySpace. It's nothing. What was that thing that Google had that was the big social network everybody wanted to get an invite for way back in the day?
Plus?
No, Leslie, they had one before, but it was, what was it, named after some guy, Zark, or I don't know. I can't even remember the name of the freaking thing. Somebody in chat will remember, but like 10 years ago, Google had something that did basically everything that Facebook does. But they ignored it, and it took off in Brazil because they had nothing, and became the big social network there. In the U.S., they didn't pay any attention to it. Eventually, it became a hotbed of spam, and most of us tried to figure out how to get ourselves out of it before Google finally shut it down. They shut it down before they started Google Plus. It would have been smarter for them to keep it. But I don't want to go too deep into it, but Facebook is it's a no-brainer to get connected with your customers on Facebook, right? If they're your customer, if they like you already, wouldn't you like those people to be connected to your Facebook page? So if somebody says, "Hey, is this product or service any good?" Somebody that knows you and likes you could be there and say, "Yeah, it is. I highly recommend it." Of course it is. And we've talked with some of our SEO type training, content marketing training that we've done already before here in the Hangouts about how to hold those conversations and use those conversations. We've done that with the Universal Traffic Engine, which is much more comprehensive look at the whole kind of picture of how we extract revenue, leads, etc. from Facebook. But the bottom line for this as a no-brainer activity, the first thing that you must do, the plumbing that you should put in place, is connect your channels to Facebook. So I know that you've got an email list, right? Because either your business is building an email list or you sell something and you have customers. And so, so there might only be that one email address if whoever did that test transaction while you're still waiting to get real customers, or if it's a new business, right, you might not have that. But you might be running, ad campaigns from other sources, right? You might be running ads on Facebook to build an email list. But once you get that relationship and you can start to learn more about them, you can start to do things with it. So your email list, your email campaigns, you should absolutely have connected to Facebook, and we'll talk in a second about how we kind of do each one of these and some of the detail of what you want to get done and how you can leverage that in terms of things that you can quickly and cheaply do to generate growth in the business. The website, right? You definitely want your website connected to Facebook and not just having a big fat like button on there, right? I mean, we kind of almost jokingly down the right rail, unless Leslie or one of his minions has finally cleaned up my little joke, where let's push all of our buttons for maximum fun. You can push this one to like us on Google Plus and that one on Twitter, and those actually, that's still I left it on there because it was actually working at a pretty high rate. Better than all the optimized and tested super social buttons, and we didn't really have any ads to run over there anyway at that point. So it was pretty easy to do. But having that big like box. I mean, Leslie, just to warn you, I'm gonna scream loud enough for you to hear in Atlanta the next time I'm looking at somebody's e-commerce site and they've got a Facebook share button on their product pages.
Yeah, no, it's
the multiple share box where you can push one button and it goes to Twitter and Squirrelblur and LinkedIn and all those other ones. No, man, don't do that, okay? You can do that invisibly and silently now. The technology is way ahead of that crap that you're doing. Stop doing that crap. It only distracts people from doing what you wanted them to do on your website, which is not leave and go somewhere else. You don't want people to go from your website to Twitter.
Oh, not at that step. No, certainly not when they're on a product page.
I think I'll go check my Twitter. No, people who do that don't come back for days. My wife checked her Twitter on Sunday. She's still doing it. Okay, no, don't do that. Don't send people away like that. So you want to get your email and your website connected up, and there are lots of other channels, and there are lots of ways that they connect, and there are lots of ways that we can. That's all part of the Universal Traffic Engine, and that's all stuff that we can talk about in another section. If somebody wants to go down one of those rabbit holes, I'm always happy to go down a rabbit hole with you. But for now, let's just focus on email and the web. What do you want to do? So when whether it's your business and you haven't done it yet, you just got hired, you're the new marketing director, congratulations. Make sure that this stuff has been done. And if you're a consultant and you haven't been able to figure out, gosh, what can I do for somebody that will help them grow their business, and that perhaps they'll even pay me to help them grow their business because I know how to do this thing. Here's a simple set of things that you can do. First of all, download all of the targetable email lists that you have. That is, if somebody opts out and they don't want to hear your messages anymore, I don't know what the rules and all that stuff says on Facebook about whether you could upload them as a custom audience, but as a matter of practice, those people are not the ones you want to target anyway, and so leave them out. If you have the ability to segment your list in any useful way, then do that. One of the ways that you don't have to segment your list very much on Facebook is by gender. Because if there's a matching email address in Facebook, Facebook already knows that, and you can segment that audience on Facebook using that. But other things like what were they interested in? People that came in and asked us for the how to recover from an SEO penalty manual are different than the people who asked for a free AdWords assessment. And by the way, folks, if you're one of them, we're getting ready to do another round of those that might want one. We're going to be sending more mail out. But right, the people that were interested in AdWords, the people that were interested in cleaning up a Google penalty, or the people that were interested in Facebook marketing, the people that were interested in copywriting or conversion help or any of the other things that we do for people, right? The more and more that we segment our mailing list, and we've been working on this, kind of as a more hardcore process for a couple of years now. It was just like we had to take it seriously too. That you don't necessarily know why you're applying tags to people when they come in, and for which form they filled out or what offer they wanted. But being able to go back later and use a system like Infusionsoft or Entreport or whatever you might use to say, okay, well, people that came in on these, do a list of all your forms, and okay, these eight forms got me people that are interested in this product or service, and so now I can upload that to Facebook as a targetable custom audience. Some of the people that I have email records for, Facebook's email is going to match, and oh, by the way, it'd be really nice to be able to get that back, because guess what? That's probably the ones that gave you their real email address, and you could scrub the rest of them out almost. Other people use fake email addresses for everything, or not fake email addresses, but unique email addresses for everything, like I do, so that you can block stuff that you want to block without having to ask for somebody to unsubscribe you, because certain people, don't actually do that when you ask them to. But you want to upload those to Facebook as custom audience. So basically any list that you're going to mail to as a separate list or sub-list of your list, you'd like to have uploaded to Facebook as a custom audience. And there's a couple things that you can do now, right? So the people that have subscribed to your email, or become an email leader, however you want to describe that relationship, I don't want to tell you what it is. Those people aren't necessarily fans of your brand on Facebook, but shouldn't they be? I mean, right? They're getting your emails. If they're opening your emails in particular, right? And oh, by the way, if you have a good system that can identify people that open versus people that didn't open, you can only target the people that opened your emails, and you can build lists based on that and just update them periodically. And that can be, in a lot of cases, that can be your most productive audience segment that you target with ads on Facebook in terms of generating revenue, leads, and referrals. But you can get people to like your page just by, just use that custom audience of your email list. Just shoot some of the posts, like we do with our clients, and we do ourselves, I believe, right? Corey, anybody? We are at least once a week, we boost one of the content posts that we make to our Facebook page to make sure that we're staying engaged with our audience, and that we're giving Facebook whatever little tiny few dollars that they want. I think we budgeted that at like $20 a week, something like that, and it gets ridiculously good reach. And as you get people to connect with you, your ads get cheaper, so that when you want to target people, the not just their personal connections, but the connections of people that are similar to them, help Facebook predict that your ad should be seen by more people. That's that affinity thing in the semi-imaginary EdgeRank algorithm that people talk about. But if people like your Facebook page, it becomes cheaper to advertise to them, and not just to them, but to people that are like them and people that they're connected with. And so the better you connect your brand and your website and your other channels to Facebook, the better Facebook is going to be at targeting people for you. And so you want to do this because it costs almost nothing to do, and it makes your other advertising that you're going to do more effective and cheaper. So it's absolutely an easy decision to make. And there are some campaigns that you can run with it basically immediately. So first of all, the Echo and Amplify email campaign. We talked about this in one of the later sessions in Universal Traffic Engine. We talked about it multiple times, but we kind of went in depth in it. It's such an easy win. So when we were trying to get folks to join us the week before Thanksgiving, which turns out not every retailer can take the week before Thanksgiving off to come to a live event. But when we were promoting our live event, which had been moved thanks to hotel people, the hospitality industry's standard practices apparently, when we were trying to fill that event up, email and then essentially sending another message out to the people that we'd emailed to on Facebook was ridiculous. I mean, double the signups from doing that stuff, and you'll see a gain, a benefit of just if you just email out an offer and amplify it with Facebook. And so, if you're going, well, I emailed my list one time 2.5 years ago, and I only made 20 sales. Okay, well, now pretend it was going to be 40 if you did this at the same time. And oh, by the way, it costs almost the same amount as emailing, which is not very much. It does not cost that much to amplify stuff, especially when, right, the people that it's going to are connected to you. They know who you are. You're going to get lots of engagement, and that means you're going to reach more people cheaply. It becomes almost organic. In fact, you get that organic amplification where you might get 5 times as much organic visibility as paid visibility, and then you get the organic echo and all the other cool stuff that we've talked about at other times. And you can also run just straight up engagement campaigns with the content, which is boost the post is what they call it now. But you can just on an ongoing routine basis spend $5 a week or $2 a week or whatever. I think there's some minimum budget, but it's not very much. Spend a little bit of money each week going after the best prospects from your email list to make sure that they're connected to you on Facebook so that you can reach them. And then what does that happen? When somebody likes your page off of that campaign, your echo and amplify campaigns reach them more times and at a lower cost. You see where this is going? Spending $15 or $20 a week on connecting stuff together actually saves you more money in other areas. It also works both ways, right?
Yeah, but Dan, before we move on, it's worth mentioning something that are good. We've talked about with impressions. It's not. We were talking about the final click, and so there's click-through rate on something. Okay, that's great, but we all know that attributing the entire economic value to the last click is completely wrong. And in
fact, I know people who last month did 5 figures in sales from Facebook if you use first-click attribution. That's how they found them. Mm-hmm. But the actual number, dollar amount, I believe Michelle was still 0 in terms of last click. They didn't buy from Facebook. They bought later. They bought on another device or whatever. But the first click, the first impression came from Facebook, and it was measurable back to that.
Yeah, and what Ben Morris had looked at with this deep dive into AdWords, and was what he found is what actually drove ultimate success was the total number of impressions per household.
Yes, how many times can you get your ad in front of somebody is much more important. And that's first get in front of the right people and then make sure that they see your ad enough times, right? That's not that targeting doesn't matter. It's, you don't want to increase reach at the expense of frequency.
Right, exactly.
You'd rather increase frequency at the expense of reach, and that's why we like focusing on the people that already know you, right? I mean, I need to go get more. Okay, good. That's a good idea, and guess what? Focusing on the people that know you will let them get you more if you do it through social channels like Facebook and stuff like that. The organic amplification goes to people that don't know you, but it comes in the form of a friendly recommendation from a friend and not an ad from you that they didn't want to see. So, but also, of course, it works both ways, right? You've got stuff that you're doing on Facebook that's going to drive people to the website or put people onto your email list, right? It works both ways, and so we, of course, also want to make sure that we have the website instrumented up, and there are a lot of different options and tools and things like that, but there are a couple of bare minimum things that you definitely want to do here. And these days for Google remarketing, it used to be all worrying about a pixel and stuff like that, but these days with universal analytics, or even if you enable it with the async code, it's very limited. I would go to universal analytics, which probably means you might as well do tag match at the same time. But with Google, it's a matter of it rides along with analytics, and all you have to do is enable the advertiser features in analytics. So that's a fairly easy thing to do. It's a little bit more work to get there with Facebook, because for some reason Facebook doesn't own an analytics platform that's so dominant like Google does. Weird. But we want to get remarketing pixels on the website, and this is one of those cases where especially for the consultants out there, if you've got clients that have URLs that look like, C equals this and P equals that and XYZ equals PDQ, there's a reason to clean that up, and it's not SEO. Okay. The reason to clean that up is because, you'd like the URL structure to actually make sense to humans if you can, but you definitely want to make a URL structure that you can sort out and make sense of easily for people also. Because do you want to have to go look up in a spreadsheet what C equals 487 is, or would you rather say, hey, we're selling hammers and let's just go look for URLs that have /hammers in it, and that's how we're gonna target our ads. Do it the first way, not the second way. Can we get the variables out of the URLs as much as possible?
The important thing there is if you're going to go to Google Tag Manager, one of the things there is how you trigger different tags, and you're typically going to do that by filtering on the URL format.
Yeah, make it easy on yourself.
Yeah.
While you're making it easy on people, and so this is something that everybody should just do. It's not that hard, and if your CMS doesn't let you do it easily and handle the redirects and all that stuff fairly easily, you probably need a new one, and you may as well start thinking about that now. But if the URLs don't help, you can actually target by pixel, so you can actually have a different pixel for different audiences. So for example, the Facebook remarketing pixel, you can have different ones that build different audiences, or you can have the one big master pixel that you can build audiences out of after the fact, by the way. So you can go in after the fact and say, now build me an audience of everybody that hit this web page. You don't have to do that necessarily right there ahead of time, but you'd like to get all your audiences set up so you can see them populating and see how many people are in there and make some decisions and measure the math on which ones are converting for you better and all that good stuff. So the Facebook remarketing pixel is one that you definitely want to put on there. That's one you should do. Just bear in mind, it works great for people that are logged into Facebook, and so it's really better for remarketing traffic that came from Facebook than necessarily traffic that came from other sources. An ad roll or perfect audience remarketing pixel is going to be better for amplifying traffic from the web, from search and other stuff like that back to Facebook. I should be very specific about that. Perfect audience and ad roll can reach Twitter, they can reach LinkedIn, but the big reason why we use them is because they can put your ads back on Facebook. And by the way, they can run, you can use them to run campaigns for people to hit your Facebook page and become fans and do all the other kinds of campaigns using those audiences. But it's essentially, it's a good way to get you extra amplification. So I sent an email offer out. I echoed and amplified that to that same mailing list on Facebook, and then the people that hit that page, I've got another ad that I can push back out to them using perfect audience or ad roll. And the reason why we use ad roll mostly because that's where we got started, and because of $75 or $100 credit or whatever, how much free money perfect audience will give you doesn't mean anything to us at this point. But if you're considering the two of them, perfect audience does give you a credit to start out with, and AdWords doesn't do credits anymore. At least I haven't seen them do a promotional credit in more than a year. So, but those are better for amplifying traffic that comes in from other sources, and so taking the people from the website that visit your website from other ways and running the same kind of advertising that you'd run with your email audience to drive people from the web to connect with you on Facebook, right? So you can drive people from Facebook to your website, but of course you can also drive people from your website to Facebook. All of these channels work both ways, right? You can get people from email to Facebook. One of the things that, speaking of discussion forums, one of the things that our pal, well, my pal anyway, I don't know if Leslie was ever pals with Jill Whalen, but Jill used to, once upon a time, have an SEO forum and an email newsletter, and every week in the email newsletter, she was able to wipe out, at least a third of the content that she had to create by just quoting from whatever the hot forum topic was and linking back to it. People loved that section, and it wasn't any work for her to put it in there. You can do the same thing. What's the Facebook topic of the week, and link to the conversation on your Facebook page. People are going to engage in that conversation, and they're going to end up becoming fans. The same thing you can do with groups of people. If you know that people are members of a group, there are lots of ways to link all this stuff together, and I can't cover them all today. But you do want to get that website pixeled up, and the reason why URL structure might matter is if you don't want to do the hard selling to the people that have only been to /blog and they haven't been to tools or products or any of your offers, right? Then you don't have to have them in an audience that's anything other than just a content audience. And obviously, for SEO reasons, there are good reasons to have a content audience, but this isn't really about that. And so what do the grown-up marketing people call this stuff? They call it audience onboarding. That makes sense, right?
That's a really dumb name.
Duh! Yes, but if you do want to go and register and be like a Facebook marketing partner, get used to calling it audience onboarding. So yeah, that's an actual thing. The point of it is to connect with your existing audience, your existing customers, people that know your brand on different platforms. So you would run onboarding campaigns for Twitter, for Facebook, for LinkedIn, for if anybody has an audience on Pinterest, right? Those people are on there. If you're going to put content into those channels, connect with the people that know you and like you already, and all of them use more or less the same methods to let you do that. Most of the ones past Facebook, we just let AdRoll and Perfect Audience handle the targeting for us, because we'd be getting into diminishing returns by spending too much effort worrying about getting people to follow us on Twitter, just because of the limitations of the platform and the fact that their usage is going down while the usage of other social channels is going up. So Instagram, Pinterest, things like that, heck, Snapchats, and Twitter's kind of disrupting themselves a little bit with Vine. YouTube, right? There are all these different channels that essentially, if you're going to participate in a channel, go through the effort there to do the audience onboarding, and it's an ongoing activity that shouldn't cost that much, right? And it really is. It's just a no-brainer activity to do it. There's so many good things that you can do from it, and it adds so much value back just in terms of savings on the advertising costs to start with. If you can run audience onboarding campaigns, and this is something that you can literally budget very, very minimal resources to, and in a lot of cases piggyback on other campaigns that you're doing. So right, we do content campaigns for for SEO purposes, but right, they can also be leveraged as part of audience onboarding. So we can target the people that are from that email upload and make sure that they become fans of the page, and we can do that simply by pushing the same stories that we were pushing out to the cold audience of people that don't know us. And so that actually concludes my formal presentation about this matter. But if you wanted to speak with me further about getting our help to put this into place in your business, or getting our help in helping you put this into place in your boss's business, you can reach me by dan+hangout@marketersbraintrust.com, and you can also find me at dan.thies, and that's Thies, Leslie, which is that's a s at the end. That's not a Z. Do you see a Z there on Skype?
Thies, sure. It sounds like.
You notice how I switched to my alternate crazy personality there right at the end? Okay.
I didn't know it was exactly alternate, but yeah, okay. I mean, it was all parcel tongue to me, so whatever.
No, I do actually. There's a normal one in here somewhere.
Yeah, let us know when you get that.
I borrowed his glasses, and so he hasn't been able to find his way out. But
one of the key things here, I think that this points out. I mean, the way that marketing has gotten, one of the ways that marketing has gotten so much more difficult over the years, is that the conversation is so much more fragmented in terms of where the conversation occurs. I mean, it used to be, if you wanted to be an SEO, man, yeah, show up at Red Cat Tapke's place or whatever, right? And you're good. You're in the one place you need to be, and that's pretty much it. But that hasn't been true in a long time.
Years and years.
Yeah. And so now you've got to really adopt what our good friend Paul Colligan had named several years ago as ISYOT. And he really was a little bit ahead of the curve on that. I mean, I'd say it's way more true today than when he coined the expression, "I've seen you out there."
Yeah.
And you have to, the way you drive up impressions, total impressions, you don't just say, well, I'm just going to flood Facebook, right? Yeah, you should flood Facebook, but not only Facebook. You really should be everywhere else as well. So show up in long tail search for the things that matter in your markets. Show up on Facebook, absolutely. I still think that Twitter is a great engagement platform, by the way. I mean, it may be decreasing, but and wherever else, and that can be on guest blogs, it could be in forums, as they still exist. So you've got to be in a situation where your prospect sees you, they have to see you some number of times. They hit threshold and they go, God, he's everywhere. Now that's probably only really.
Well, that's not even a conscious thing, though. That's the thing is you just unconsciously start to know and trust. I mean, the Ben Max saying about, which was largely about frequency, was people know what they like because they like what they already know. And so it doesn't matter how they know you, as long as they don't have some painful memory associated with that, they're going to think you're good. We used to see people, back when, there were more and more conferences and they were starting to ramp up the whole marketing business. You'd see people, on stage and you go, really? That guy's an idiot. How in the heck did they get up there? Well, it's because they're everywhere. They're participating in every forum, and people have seen them everywhere, and so their name is known and they're trusted, even though the CI factor is definitely in play there. But that stands for complete idiot, folks. I hope I didn't give away too much of our internal secret technology.
For the one of the things that I came across a week or two ago was at least with Google, they're starting to crack down on some HIPAA stuff. So be very mindful with how you're remarketing.
Good point.
You don't want to make it too scary. Where they come to this example was for a personal injury lawyer, and they were following them around with ads talking about a bicycle accident because they landed on a bicycle accident page. And according to Google, that violates the new HIPAA regulations.
Somebody might find out that you were in a bicycle accident because they don't know that your browser was your browser and all of this.
It's a little ridiculous in my mind, but just
it's really hard on we work with a number of different medical practitioners, right? And they won't let us build a remarketing audience off that stuff. They can shut down your AdWords account if they find out that you're doing that. So it's definitely when you want to understand the rules about there.
Yeah, I wonder to what extent you could actually make that work, because you just need to dilute the message sufficiently. Like in the case of the bicycle accident. So maybe not following around with bicycle accident, but at least follow around with your brand.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the only kind of campaigns that you're going to get approved. And we Michelle's had more conversations recently with Google than I have about this stuff. But it's you're not going to get a remarketing campaign for this. Don't worry about it.
Well, I had to put them on speed dial, Dan. I had to put them on speed dial. So let's just say that. Yeah.
It was like a 20% time saving in our job. Yeah.
There's our Kickstarter for this year, guys. We're going to come up with a red phone that you can have programmed for one number that it just dials when you pick it up.
And
that's all it does.
And when it rings, it goes doo 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 doo. Here, get that movie reference. But anyway, so
there's no fighting in the war room.
All right. So the fragmentation of the conversation, you have to be in so many different places, and that's one of the things that made it more marketing way more complex. And the other one is that it's no longer, you actually have to be a sighted dog to find a bone. You cannot be a blind one. And if you're still blind, and we run into this all the time. So here's a self-help questionnaire for you. You can all take it home, for those of you watching, and in the replay as well. So do you have Google Analytics installed, yes or no? Actually, let's start with, do you know what Google Analytics is and whether or not you have it installed? We get that a lot when I'm talking on, for a private consulting client. I'll ask the question, and now I swear to God, last year alone, I probably got 5 people say, "I'm not sure."
Oh yeah, we have all that.
Or that, and then you find out it's not even installed.
We got it from Blue Gator.
No, right. Yeah, and so what they mean is like server logs. No, that doesn't really do it. Count
the number of hits though. Google Analytics doesn't know how many hits you got.
Yeah, there you go. True. So that's one thing. And then the next thing is, if you're an e-commerce website, do you have e-commerce tracking configured correctly? If you're a lead generation site, do you have your whatever constitutes your final conversion event, thank you page after an opt-in? Do you have that set as a goal? But if you don't have those things, you don't actually have even the beginnings of tracking. And then there's a bunch of stuff after that, and we're actually working on it's probably going to be around 20 to 30 points where there's a triage where, and we're going to backfit it to all of our 50 plus clients at this point, because most of them came in, we started working with them, we got as much done as we could get them to do or could get done, and we're realizing that no, this is way more important than that. We need to actually go back through and fix them all, and so on our dime we're going to go do that. But we'll make that kind of a thing. We'll talk more about that as soon as we get that project near completion. But there's a lot more you can do and should do with tracking, and it's the opposite of being a blind dog. Now you're a dog with X-ray vision, and that's really critical. And anyone who's not in analytics in their business at a frequency higher than once a month is not paying attention to the things that matter. There, how's that?
Somebody better be in there.
Yeah, somebody better be in there. And so those two things taken together, like the market's fragmented and the measurement problem is now an absolute necessity to be able to be successful, to be even competitive, let alone successful.
Well, if you can't measure the outcome that you want, it's right. You've got a disadvantage over somebody whose compass actually points north and yours spins around in circles.
Yeah. So those two things.
Knowing which way is up is kind of important.
And so those two things, and they're foundational. Even before you try to make money, we haven't even talked about, what's my offer, what's my price point, how do I market? I haven't even gotten that far, and we had to put in a substantial amount of effort just to get ready to do that, right? And that's the effort we didn't have to put in 10 years ago, or even really 7 years ago. You could have done without it. And I know we have lots of clients, the last time they touched any of that stuff was probably about 7 years ago when they were learning internet marketing from some character, and they stopped learning after they got out of that course. So, Michelle knows the course I'm talking about. So,
I have no clue.
No clue at all. So anyway. So we don't actually have any more questions. Did we actually get all the questions? Because I know
you shouldn't talk about Corey right in front of his face.
Yeah, right. I know. Exactly.
Right
we'll talk about it behind his back. That would be much.
And he's got his little splint. Poor fella.
Yeah.
Handy capable.
I'm wondering. So Corey, did they have like ski splints where you can just put them on before you get on the slopes? That way, like it's already on there when you break it.
I had the full body cast one, except the right wrist.
Oh man!
On my jacket.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
You had armor everywhere else, but that's like your Achilles wrist.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to suggest why you had that. No, right. Okay.
Working too hard on the keyboard.
Yeah.
He had to be able to, Snapchat while he was skiing.
Yeah.
Literal snap
on Tinder. Swiping.
Okay, well, I think we've degenerated for this hangout. So,
there was one thing that I like about what Dan's talking about is that, and Dan Kennedy says this, and you and Dan call it the truck number. One is the worst number for any business owner, and before 2012, Google was that one number. That's where everybody, I just have to put out a bunch of crap content and I'll rank in Google and that'll give me my traffic. This is about getting traffic.
Turned out that was truck bait.
You've got your blog traffic, you've got your long tail traffic, you've got your email traffic, you've got your Facebook traffic, and they all interlink and they all feed into each other. If one goes down, you're not necessarily lost. Whereas a lot of people were hosed when Google change the game on them, you know.
Yeah, they were only looking at a small number of short tail keywords, and so when those got hit, you know, they're done. And whereas, you know, in a healthy, and Dan and I've been teaching this for probably Dan close to a decade, but you should really have, you know, for a healthy SEO presence, right? For a healthy SEO presence, half of it should be long tail. Now, it's hard to determine what's long tail and short tail anymore, thanks to not provided.
Not provided.
But I mean, you should be able to figure out to some extent, and it's just, you know, you really ought to be having a really deep keyword pool, not that you created by spinning, but that you created by writing content of interest to your marketplace. And that's going to be that long tail attractor. And the thing about it is, you are never, ever, ever going to get penalized for a long tail search, right? It just doesn't make any damn sense. The economics for Google don't make any sense. It's not about whether or not.
Don't let Leslie rank for this specific 9-word query algorithm.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. Yes. And so
we'll get on and hang out with John Mueller and see when that one's going to be released.
In fact, I worked with a client several years ago. It was a really interesting problem because we figured out that massive statistics. Okay, I mean the way they'd started out in Google Analytics, kind of an interesting story. They started out in Google Analytics, and they very rapidly completely wiped out the capabilities of Google Analytics because everything they were getting was sampled, and they didn't like sampling. And so what they did is they split the website. In the different silos of the website, they had different analytics IDs, and so they literally had about 10 different analytics accounts for the 1.7 million page website. And it was a social shopping site. And I don't think the social shopping ever really caught on exactly, but in any event, it's really kind of a big affiliate play ultimately, but with a social dimension. So it's kind of like Facebook, but only for shopping. It's kind of strange. Anyway. What we found from analyzing their data is that their traffic was basically a mirror of Google traffic. It was really classic. They had a nearly perfectly shaped traffic graph from short tail to long tail. So as you look at you count the words in the search expression, and it's because they had so much content, and they didn't have any particular axe to grind in terms of keyword targets. And they had a very large website with a lot of pages across a whole bunch of different markets. And so, to some extent, they became almost a proxy for Google as a whole. You could almost view it that way. And we were considering at one point whether or not to try to PageRank sculpt that website, and was finally determined that based upon the real numbers, they got just as good a behavior, ultimately, sell-through, from the long-tail traffic as they did from the short-tail traffic. It just happened over a different time span. And so now, this is one of those little last click, first click, whatever, journey attribution models. If you do it right, I maintain that you can actually get as good a value at a long tail as you can short tail. Now, obviously, that client was a special case, but it's special only because of its size and its scope. Within a narrower market, you don't have to be that big to have that degree of scope within your market. If you have enough content that covers your market sufficiently, within the narrow confines of that market, you can have a traffic graph that basically mirrors what Google gets. And so what that should mean to you, what you should take away from that is that gives you the ISIOT, right? It gives you the number of impressions that you're really going to need, and every place a person looks within the confines of that market, they're going to find you. So what does that say? You automatically, it's the way people decide things. You are the market leader. And in fact, I could maintain that you really are legitimately the market leader because you provided content that they really want. So just bear that in mind, that if you have been hit by a penalty or an algorithmic impact, and it destroyed your organic traffic, all that really means, means two things. One is that you've been a bad boy in terms of SEO. Okay, take your licks. We can get that shit removed if you want help. But it means something. There's more fundamentally wrong than your SEO strategy was your content strategy. It meant that you were too focused on a small number of targets as opposed to writing for the whole marketplace. And you would actually have seen, if you had been doing that, your conversions, before you got penalized, would actually have been higher on the short tail stuff. Because very few people buy on the first click. Instead, they're jumping all around between paid and organic and different channels and whatever in order to decide who to buy from. And so the fact that you did not show in long tail was negatively impacting your short tail. So anyway, kind of, I guess I should terminate that rant. We can keep that for another day. But that's, again, it's an indication that where people are too focused on one narrow channel. And really, I mean, Dan has taught this before. It's like, we really, in Google, you can split that up almost as keywords are channels. Because that's how, in some respects, I mean, that's how you have to almost treat it if you're going to target keywords, right? So don't do that. Fundamentally, let keywords take care of themselves. Follow the conversation in the market, write the content makes sense, amplify it by connecting all your channels together, and what's going to happen is the organic effects you're going to get are going to float your short tail anyway. So.
And I think, Leslie, one of the challenges that we end up with as entrepreneurs and marketers is we sometimes forget that we aren't necessarily our target market, and that the people who buy from us don't think like us. I'm not a big price shopper. If I decide I'm buying this, I'll spend 5-6 minutes and I'm done. Toy, on the other hand, will spend 3 days trying to decide on the thing that was $5 more, $5 less, and God knows how many retargeting pixels later. And so just trying to keep that in mind of who your avatar is and who that person is buying and how they make these decisions, because most likely they ain't like you.
Well, yeah, I'm a highly intellectual shopper, but I'm not shopping on price. I'm shopping on features and qualities, and whether it's a suitable status symbol for whatever, right? So there's still a lot of analysis, and that's the reason. I mean, like I have several wish lists plus cart save for later in Amazon. I'm using as a research tool. As I figure out which is the best one of these to buy, and that's. And I'll go in and out of Amazon and Google and whatever to try to get a a more complete picture of what's available in the market, for the thing I'm trying to buy. And so it takes me most of the time a long time to make a decision about what to buy, but it's not about. I never look at the damn price. I mean, well, almost never. It has to be a big price for me to care, but that's you're going to have these different kinds of behaviors, and it was. Somebody argued, actually my Taekwondo master, had argued that this one group of people analyze whether they go into a particular studio more than this other group of people. And I said, nah, I don't believe that. The proposition was that somebody that knew a lot about that kind of service offering and that product was going to analyze more than someone who did not. I don't believe that. I think it's psychologically tuned in all of us. We have a particular way of making decisions. I mean, what you presented, Michelle, was that you're a very fast, intuitive decision maker, whereas a toy is in fact one that requires a lot of data to reach a decision. And how are those people presented within your marketplace? Well, if you're selling books to mathematicians, okay, they're probably more analytical than most, right? But if you're selling stuff to musicians or dancers, probably not. They're probably more intuitives. But you still have to get in front of them multiple times, because just the way the limbic brain is wired, they're going to need to see impressions of you before they're going to make a decision, even if it's a snap decision. They're still going to need to see multiple impressions.
Are you trustworthy?
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's see. Oh, there's a couple questions here. Do you guys recommend? Trevor asks, do you guys recommend a primer or introduction to step-by-step tracking setup of a WordPress website? How to set up Google Analytics, how to set up final conversion tracking, mail options to product, services, sales. Well, okay, so there's two things there. The Brian Clifton book, Advanced Web Analytics with Google Analytics. Advanced, what is it? It's by Brian Clifton, and Google Analytics is in the title. Let me look that up. And so that's the book we recommend, and that's more of a textbook. Okay, just bear in mind that that's not one of those things you're just going to sit down by the fire one evening and read. And so that's one thing. As I said, we're working on some training material around Google Tag Manager, which is really the way you want to go. If you're going to get in there and muck around with stuff, do Google Tag Manager. The only reason you would not do Google Tag Manager, so this is key, is if your shopping cart does not support it. And so there are two different solutions there. You could either use Universal Analytics throughout your website if you're an e-commerce site and your cart does not support Google Tag Manager. Or you could actually use Google Tag Manager throughout the rest of your site except your cart and use Universal Analytics in your cart and make sure that Google Tag Manager you install Universal Analytics. I know that was kind of a roundabout. But the idea there, as long as you're using the same version of tracking code across the entire conversion process, and we've had this issue where if someone's using, we actually had someone using the old Urchin code, believe it or not, that's bizarre. But you have to be using the same version.
We had somebody using all three.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Well, that's you want to make sure you have a spare on hand, of course. So, but they don't. Some of this, I mean, the basic stuff works, but some of the advanced stuff that that Dan needs, for example, just doesn't function. So don't do that. You're going to use the same version. So first of all, absolutely upgrade Google Analytics to Universal Analytics. That's a no-brainer. You should just do that. That's not even open to discussion. It's backward compatible with what is on your website as long as it's recent code, like async GA would be a good recent version, right? Recent meaning it was released 4 years ago, whatever. And so definitely upgrade to Universal Analytics. If you're going to go in and muck around with the code on your website, Google Tag Manager is your best choice. If you can't get that everywhere, then drop back to Universal Analytics where it's not available. Yeah, and like I said, we're going to have some training on this at some point, just as soon as we get enough round to it stacked up to make it happen. Richard.
A few minutes to rub together. Yeah.
Leslie, would you say, probably I say all sorts of things, that being seen in various channels is part of the he's everywhere syndrome that you referred to earlier? Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's the reason that's why Paul coined the term. He was saying you have to be in multi-channel. If you've been following any of the stuff that he and Mike Koenigs do together, it's all about multi-channel, 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 and they're absolutely spot on. I mean, the reason, frankly, that link liberation works, even back when Dan was teaching it in 2008 or 9, whatever the hell it was. Even then, the implications of all the plumbing between the search and social channels was the reason that link liberation works so well. Link liberation is a multi-channel marketing methodology, just pure, plain and simple. You can't just say, oh, well, what's
in the first day we go over why the math, it's all about impressions, right? How do you get links? More impressions.
Yeah, I mean, you have to feed people the content so that they'll link to it, and we've seen several other people talk about that of late. You can sort of almost split the SEO community at this point. There's the people who are doing content marketing and the people who are still trying to trick Google.
Then there's those people that say, oh, I've been doing link building for 10 years. You call it content marketing now.
Yeah, I said you actually heard that on a webinar, right, Corey?
I did. Yeah, that cracked me up.
Wow, yeah, because content marketing and link building, those look alike.
Those are exactly the same.
They should be.
Good point. All right, touche, Dan. Anyway, so to answer your question there, Richard, yes, absolutely is Yacht. I mean, that is exactly being in multiple channels. Absolutely right. And now within any particular channel, you still want to saturate the channel in a sense. I mean, you want to be, in order, people, they argue with us sometimes, new clients, like, I mean, no, I don't want to be posting 3 times a day to my Facebook channel. People will get tired of me. They'll think I'm, a real bore. It's like, they're not going to see it. Like, we'll be lucky if they see 2 or 3 a week, given the amount of, crap on Facebook, right?
Boost the good ones, and the ones that want all of it will be able to get all of it. If they engage with everything, they'll get everything.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, but they have to actually take the action to engage with it in order to get it, and so that's not a bad thing. And so you have to realize just the volume of content that's out there and how much you need to create in order to really achieve this effect. And there's a threshold you have to be over in order to really get the number of impressions you need, in order to get enough content, enough presence in these channels. And so you know, if you're going to do a blog post once a week, and I told one of our good friends, Paul Lemberg, about this, and said, well, if you're only going to post once a week, just take it off your list. That's not going to be worthwhile anyway. He said, well, thanks. That's one less thing to worry about. I want to beat myself up about it. It's like, that's not really what I was saying, Paul, but okay, that's one way to interpret it. So, all right, well, we ran a little long.
All about that message.
So, do we have any closing comments then? And before we sign off, we're 4:15 at this point.
I say let's sign off.
Okay, well, let's do that. And so, gang, thanks a lot for hanging in there. We've got almost everybody that logged on is still on. By the looks of things, a few folks might have dropped off. But so thanks a lot for hanging out with the Braintrust on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll be back next week with a topic to be announced. We still haven't actually quite figured out the old editorial calendar, but we'll figure it out sometime this week.
But we figured out the editor, and I think that's important.
That's an important point. Yes, that's true. So we'll get that done. But anyway, in the meantime, find us on YouTube, find us on Facebook, find us on our website, for example. Those would be good places to find us.
They subscribe to us on YouTube.
You could do that. And you know, all these questions about replays. Hey, guys, this is a Google Hangout. The moment it goes, you know, the moment we hit the stop button, it goes live on YouTube. So just yeah,
prove it.
That.
Push the stop button.
Push the button. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.